All right, good morning, everybody. We have an amazing sales meeting planned for you today, and the best part is I'm not the one presenting it. Everybody noticed that Tom was back. That's nice. Hey, the elections are wrapping up. Thank God our emails will have nothing in them and our text messages will be unfruitful. But again, we have a great candidate here with us. She's stopped here at Signature because she loves our group so much. Let's give another round of applause to Christina Chapter.
Thank you so much for letting me jump in here one last time before the end of these campaigns and everybody can go back to work and life. I have a full day of stops at all the offices around the valley today, so I appreciate you allowing me to come in and jump in really quick. As many of you may know, my name is Christina Chipman. I am running for your 2023 LVR Treasurer. I currently serve on the board and have been for the last 2 years. Prior to that, I spent 3 years serving on the board for the Women's Council of Realtors Las Vegas Network. I was your 2020 president. I am honored and honestly humbled to have so much support from all of your amazing owners and brokers and managers here at the Signature Real Estate Group. The unique part about your experience and the company that you guys are working with is that you are working with many managers who have had hands-on experience and have been in that boardroom. That says a lot about who they are endorsing, because they're not just saying it because their friend told them to, or their friendships. Listen, I know we're all friends. I'm friends with all the people that are running for this campaign right now. But being a friend and doing the right thing and putting in the right people for the right job to run this association that protects you as members is super, super important. So please take that into account. This is not a popularity contest. This is not about who your friends are. This is about who is going to do the right job for you in that room. And I'm asking for your vote, 2023 LVR Treasurer. I have the experience in the leadership. I also have the experience in the financial. I currently serve under the Nevada State Treasurer, Marcella Sim, on her Budget and Finance Committee. I am the only candidate for this position who has that experience. So I think it's a no-brainer, and I hope that you do too. Please take 50 seconds out of your time today. Go into your email, click that vote, and cast your votes. Christina Chipman, Las Vegas Treasurer, and that's it. I was less nervous this last
Yeah, you did great. You can tell she's polished her campaign speech. So just a reminder, you should have gotten an email yesterday at midnight, 12:01, with your election email. You do have to click on the link. You do have to put in the password. You do have to put in the username, and you could never remember them without going and checking the email twice. You will continually get that email until you vote. And so it's in your best interest to vote often and keep going.
You can keep voting?
Anything you want to have in the election is our president.
Here, the Democrat.
I would just say, please vote. I mean, as we've had record turnout in committees, we've record turnout at general membership meetings since I've been president. And it's not all my doing, but I would love to have the record turnout for votes this year too. It's important. And like she said, we have been through the trenches and we've seen it, and she is the right candidate for treasurer. So hopefully you will vote for her, and Yared is the right candidate for president-elect, so hopefully you'll vote for her too. There's a whole mess of people running for the board of directors, and you can assemble that any way which possible. There's 4 candidates there, but the executive committee is less forgiving than the board, so to speak, on the qualifications of the people that are on there. So please make sure that you vote, and I wish you could vote early and vote often, but you can only vote once.
I voted early. I voted for Christina.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
So, and if you have questions, I know you can reach out to her. If you have questions, you can always reach out to any of the leadership team here too, because we'd love to answer anything we can to help.
I don't have a fancy website for you to visit because I don't even barely know how to get on the internet half the time. But I have flyers that I've made, and they talk a lot about my experience. So
Beautiful.
Janet.
Thank you.
I just want to say that
Save the microphone.
I just want to say that I am one of more than one person who did not get their email early Monday morning. And so if you're one of those people also, I've seen on Agents of Signature, a couple people posted, I don't have a link. I have a phone number that you can call, so just contact me and I'll give you the phone number. I did it yesterday and it took them about 3 hours and I finally got another link. So You've not been overlooked, but you do, if you didn't get one and you've been a realtor less than 90 days, you're not gonna get one.
Would they refer to that as the missing link? Okay, so before we go on to our meeting, that was funny. You all think about that later when you watch it on the replay. Wants and needs. Who has a new listing, a new buyer? Anybody have any new buyers or new listings? Anything you want to pitch out to the group? Yes.
We have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a little under 1,100 square feet in North Las Vegas off of Lycan and Camino El Dorado. Going live tomorrow for $340.
Going once. Yep.
If anyone wants to do any open houses this weekend, please let me know.
Anybody else? Adam? Anything? Oh, I'm ready. I got a house. It's for sale. All right. Perfect. So with that, we're going to have Jason come up. Jason is going to share a mortgage moment. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Sorry, we had to do printouts versus slides. Apparently, the overhead projector's not working as well, so we're going to do this the old-fashioned way with nice little PowerPoint printout, basically. So what does everybody hear right now is how horrible the market is. Is that about right? That sounds about what you're hearing? I'm going to make a mathematical. That's right. Dave. Somebody read the packet already. Very good. I'm going to make the argument that mathematically it's not so bad as you might think. Back in March, we'll go to page 2. Sorry, I printed it front and back on accident, so I apologize. But we save paper, so that's always a very good thing. So what was life back in March? March, we were right around the 3.75 range. We weren't in the 2s anymore. We were starting to notice that things were going up and maybe things were taking a turn. And if you wanted to buy a home for $400,000, who could actually buy a home for $400,000? Does anybody know anybody that bought anything at list price in March? You were obviously had 20 offers out there. People are paying $30,000, $40,000 over the limit to buy a home. So it was a great time for sellers, there's no doubt about that. But it was also a horrible time for buyers. People forget that little detail for it. So there was also just a little under or a little over, depending on who you're asking, about 2,000 homes in inventory back in March. Let's go to the next page. So this just came out. We got our statistics last week directly from the LVR. It said that the June 2022 numbers of new listings up 21% from before. We are at 22 number of units of sold was 2,668, down 24.7% from June. June 22, this is up 21 by the way, not of last month obviously. Apologize. June 22 number of single-family unit residents, 8,559, up 23.4% from last year, up 24% from May of just this last month. What is this all telling you? Why do we do all these different statistics over here? Well, obviously there's a whole lot more listings. That's as all of you know. Nothing of this is news to you, but you might be hit a little blindsided with some of the statistics that just came out. But with a lot more listings comes a lot more opportunities for buyers. We go to the next page here. So how could this possibly be a better situation? Well, you don't have to offer $30,000 more on a $400,000 purchase anymore. As I'm sure a lot of you have seen, you might get something for list price. You might even be able to do something that we used to do in the olden times called negotiate. It's the weirdest thing. It's where a buyer offers something a little bit lower than list price, or they ask for something like a home warranty to be paid, or they ask for seller credits. What a concept. Something that Shelley came up with the other day too for everybody. What if you actually got credits back from the seller? What an idea. Wouldn't that be amazing? But even if you didn't, even if you just got it for listing price, people were paying $30,000 willingly 4 months ago for a home that wasn't even worth that dollar amount. What if you bought it for that exact amount and you paid $30,000 called points? Does anybody know what points is? Great. If you don't know what points is, that's buying down the rate basically. That's paying a fee that you don't have to pay to make your interest rate lower. And when we looked it up, lo and behold, if you put $30,000 into the same scenario with good credit, your interest rate today is 3.75. Now, it's not something that you have to do. It's something you can do by choice. But my main point, I'm doing on the last page here, is the reason why I'm saying you can make an argument that the market is better now for buyers than it was before, even with higher interest rates. It was not a choice back in March. You had to pay $30,000 more if you wanted to get a home. If you wanted to be one of those 20 offers that stood out, you had to do something completely different. You don't have to do that anymore. Now it's up to you if you want to make that rate lower or not. You can put in a full price offer and take the same $30,000 you were going to do in March, and apply it to your interest rate and get the same rates that you have in March. Or what you can do is you can not do that. You can have one of the higher interest rates out there. You can take one that doesn't charge anything. It's right around the 6 to 6.5 range. But you can get the home of what it's worth. The difference is choice, would be my point to anybody out there. In March, you did not have a choice. Yes, you did get a better interest rate, but you had to pay over. Now you don't have to do that kind of situation. My point is to remind everybody that now they have choices that they can. This is starting to turn more into a buyer's market than it's ever been. People haven't seen that for a couple of years. Some of you that are newer in this industry have never seen it before. When it's a buyer's industry, there's a lot of options that you can do out there, and this is one of them. So, any questions on it?
Good stuff.
All right, that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So, I saw a video yesterday, and anyone here use Instagram besides Tom? Yeah, perfect. You'll get that one later. So there was a video yesterday from Mike Ferry, and he said on that video that he has seen a return to what he calls normal, right? Anyone here remember a normal market? So if you were an agent, who joined the real estate business after 2012? Anyone here? Okay. So those people that joined after 2012 have never realized a market that wasn't trending upwards. And so not every listing is going to sell, not every buyer is going to buy, and it's going to take longer than 60 days in some cases to sell every property that you have. And so that's what he considers a new normal. So with that good news, I'm going to welcome up Shelly P. with her sales. The author, Shelly P.
Okay, so I was going to end with that. Should we give a gift out for free now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So on your Mortgage Moment flyer, there's a QR code. I have a free gift for you. For those, some of you may have known, I've been putting together a labor of love called a book. I started at end of October 2021, and it's now officially live. So for all of you, you'll have an opportunity to get a free ebook. Download it today for me, please, because I think it's only available today. Do that. Please share it. The paperback is ready, and then the hardcover is going to be launched soon as well. And of course, for my favorite signature family, I will also be, once I get them in, I'll give you guys all a hard copy of it once it's here. But this book has been a labor of love on how I turned my 6-figure credit card debt into a 7-figure income, and today I'm living the life of my dreams. So I hope that you'll be able to enjoy the book. Make sure you leave a review, and thank you for indulging me by downloading it today. Okay. So moving on to the actual event, with everything shifting in the market, we thought it would be a good time to bring in our favorite appraiser. How many of you know Harry from Benchmark Appraisals? Harry, come on up. Give him a round of applause, please. All right. You get a mic too. You get a mic, you get a mic, you get a mic. Okay. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Everybody excited? Okay. All right, so what we'll do is I have a couple of questions, and because of the projector, there's a few comps and things on here, but these questions are actually specific to a couple of agents' transactions that they had asked me first. But before we jump into that, Harry, do you want to share a little bit, because I know we do have some newer folks here also. You want to share a little bit about how long you've been in the industry, who you are, what you do, how much you charge? I'm just kidding.
Charge depends. Harry Schmaltz, been in the business for over 30 years now, so I feel like I'm starting to get a hang of the appraisal gig. So here to answer any questions you might have, and that's about it.
So he's so humble. So he's been with our team. So for appraiser or for for mortgage companies, we have the opportunity to select a panel. He's been on our panel for over 15 years on our new construction and our resale because of how he's very helpful when it comes to communication, not just with us, but with you as agents. So whether you're listing a home or you've got questions about a specific appraisal that's come in, he's the first person I call at any time that we have questions from you guys, specific to FHA, VA, conventional, how this conversion room would look like on an appraisal, all of those good things. But he's also very knowledgeable because of your spectrum of new construction, resale, and only in Las Vegas, right? Do you go out to Mesquite or Pahrump or
Mostly
Logandale?
just Park County.
Park County.
Every once in a while I'll do some per out, but only on an emergency basis.
Yeah, so anytime I see an appraisal from Harry, I know that no matter what it is, it's it's fair, and that it's been done correctly. He's done all of his due diligence. And so hopefully, if you guys have any questions, he'll share his contact information. So the number one question I have right now is, what are you seeing with market changes? Are you seeing market shifts? And what do they look like? Let's start there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It started several weeks ago. I also am a partner in an AMC, and we have coast-to-coast offices. And I first noticed a downturn in Orange County, and then I noticed some in Florida, and then of course it made its way here. So overall, nationwide, we're seeing a real slowdown.
And you said a few weeks ago, like a month, or?
You know, probably like May. It's already July, right? So
It is.
Yeah, so it's many weeks ago that I first started.
Start May. And when did we start seeing this shift? We just reported in the county what this.
June was really bad.
In June.
It started happening mid-June.
Yeah. That's not right, about a month ago.
And how's product, like what are you seeing as far as orders and things come in?
My business is down about 50%. And a lot of that, like, you know, we obviously, you know, a lot of refis too, and so the interest rate kind of killed that as well. But there's so much uncertainty in the whole general market, all markets, not just real estate, but there's just too much uncertainty right now, I believe.
So with the Orange County, and are you seeing it specific to certain sales prices, or is it just across the board?
No, it's pretty much across the board.
Here in Vegas also?
No, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So then the other question is, what are you seeing new for appraisals with respect to, like, I know you only do FHA and conventional. You're not old enough to do VA yet, right? You have to be Sorry for any VA appraiser who's listening to me today. Jokes on me. But what are you seeing new or changing for the appraisal?
As far as value-wise, or?
Just anything that's come out for guidelines or guidance for you as an appraiser, so that maybe
the guidelines are always the same, the principles and procedures, no matter which way the market's going, it's always just the same procedures. We're always a lagging indicator, so right now as the market's going down, our trend lines are still accelerating, and because we're going to be like months behind the actual market. So we're probably not going to see any value issues for quite a while, I would think.
That's good. So, yeah.
Can you explain why the lag? Like,
because we work on historical data. You know, you guys are always probably projecting like months out, right? When you take a listing, we only look at sales, so we may be going back 6 months, and that trend line goes for 12 months. So, you know, we're working on stuff that happened a year ago up until today's date, and that trend line is still going up. You know, it's in the next few months, it's going to start leveling off statistically.
What about pending sales? Do those factor into your evaluation at all?
Which
like
sales?
Pending, the ones that are
yeah,
listing?
we look at that. We have to put 2 pendings or listings in anything that goes to Fannie Mae.
So how does that affect your appraisal if you're still looking at historical data, but you've got 2 like listed comps or pending comps that are up that may be a little bit lower?
It all depends on condition. I mean, we're going to try to get as close as we can, but if we start showing the trend on the listings going down, then we're going to have issues with underwriting.
What about, I know everybody hates comparing '08 to today, but in '08, the biggest thing for us was the indicator for declining market, stable market, and is there such a thing as increasing market?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We've been in an increasing market for,
2 years.
Years now, yeah.
So do you see us going into what they would call a stable market?
Yeah.
Specifically off the appraisal?
That would be my hope, that it would stabilize and not decline, because a declining market is a whole other issues we got to deal with.
What would that look like if you were doing an appraisal and we were in a declining market? What would that look like from a comp comparison?
So just like in an inclining market, we're adjusting for sell dates, we're adding in, but in a declining market, and we're subtracting from the comps. So. Mm-hmm.
So in our current environment where we're probably seeing more sales price reductions, would you consider that a declining market?
Not until they start selling.
Right.
We have to have so many, like 29 sales to establish a trend. So, and when the sales shrink, we have to expand that search to find enough sales to establish that. Yes.
So I know when I run my comps and I put that on my prices, I go back 6 months of your sales, right, on a 1 mile radius.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens if you don't have enough comps? How much further do you go?
You expand it time and space, so you go back up to a year and out a couple of miles until you can find something similar.
That's right, we're growing.
Yeah.
I have like one or something, you know?
Yeah.
Is it in a unique community or is it a specific?
Specific, you know, square footage and stuff like that. 'Cause I don't go too far out on the square footage. I go like 200, like 200.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah, that's-
so I keep it.
That's a good practice.
But sometimes they're like, I don't see anything. Nothing hasn't sold.
To try to get you the sales price. So how are you providing the information for the seller to list the house?
I go a little bit further out
Mm-hmm.
and just try to find as many as I can find.
For
I
comps.
don't go as far as a year because the market shift is so
Right.
much within the
Yeah, if you go back a year, you're gonna have to add in a certain percentage of increase.
Well, and that actually brings me to a good, we'll share this flyer in front. So you've got a couple of grids on here. I know they're super small, so I'll read through them. The one that's actually highlighted on the very bottom left, so that kind of talks a little bit about if you guys haven't looked at an appraisal, this is what we call a comp grid, right? The comparison grid. So an appraiser will go through, they'll mark out all of the different comps. They'll notate any of the different adjustments. If you ever hear a lender say this adjustment is this adjustment is that, based off of the comparables, that's what you're looking at here. So if you look at comparable 4, which is highlighted, so this home was sold on 5/21. It went into contract 4/21. And if you see, it says plus 229,900. So what would that be, Harry?
Okay, that's the data sale adjustment. And what we do is we would go off the contract date. Sometimes they're in escrow for 90 days, so it's not fair because the meeting of the minds was at that contract date. So that's what we go off of that. So that is whatever percentage the appraiser decided was going up per month. If this was, say, a July, he'd be adding 3 months worth of appreciation on that timeline.
So it was $1.1 million. Do you guys see where the top line is? $1.1 million for what the actual home was sold for. And then you'll see that they gave $229,900 as an adjustment. So that goes to the benefit of the comp, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so that's the time adjustment. So when you're talking about, that's a year out based on, so this appraisal was just created or was just completed in June. So this would have been a year out. Now this property is inside of Canyon Gates. How many of you have seen the homes inside of Canyon Gates? And apparently there's a specific Opus collection inside of there. You guys know that there's so when we were trying to figure out why, so inside of Canyon Gates there's like 50 or 60 homes that are different than the normal
Yeah,
homes
there's
that are
production homes and there's custom
Like the
homes.
customs?
And then you've got the golf course as well.
Yeah, so this home was a production home, but they were trying to evaluate it up against a custom home to try to get a valuation. So the value came in short by about $50,000. This is one of the comps that they used, and one of the explanations was because of it wasn't one of the custom properties.
Yeah, that would be a quality adjustment, quality of construction.
And so that actually is on here too. So if you look further down that grid, you'll see Superior that shows, this shows negative 25,000. So that is saying that our subject property is less by 25,000 as far as value is concerned because of the condition.
Yeah, I'm not sure about, like, every appraiser is a little different. Like, I would put that on the quality, the Q, where he's got Q4.
Yeah.
I would say custom's like a Q2 maybe, and make the adjustment there. So he's saying it's superior against an average of this. So I'm not sure what he's trying to get across, like if it's average quality or average condition, but there's separate lines that you should be doing that on.
Well, and I think for our for the agent that actually was trying to, because we did this as a rebuttal, so we sent this back into, this was actually a VA appraiser. We sent it back into them with once they requested Tidewater, and they actually came back and said, sorry, we did analyze those comps, we're still coming up with this evaluation, and here's why. They basically made this statement that the ones that they were trying to get value for were the larger custom homes, and so that was a reason they couldn't come up that extra 50,000. But when you're comping out a property inside of different collections, Like there are several communities that have that. What's the best way for an agent to kind of evaluate what an appraiser would look like? So I know KB was huge with villages, right? They had condos, they had townhomes, they have your bigger single-family residences, and then their estates.
Right, so we always just say apples and apples, oranges and oranges. Like if you're working on a production home in a guard-gated community, like say Spanish Trails to Canyon Gate would be a good comparison. Even though there's some distance, it's still a similar golf course community. So we're always just looking for similarities.
So it doesn't matter if it's across the street or across like Henderson versus Summerlin?
Well, you probably want to stay, in the Summerlin area if that's where you're at. But just, we try to look for the most similar properties. So we'd never, in realistic terms, we would never use a full-blown custom on a golf course, to a standard track house, even though it's in the same development.
Got it. So you made a comment as far as the differences between appraisers, and why is that? Isn't there just one book that you guys read that says, this is how you become an appraiser, this is how you value my house?
If only that were true. No, it's just like agents, everyone's a little different, everybody has their own techniques, but the standards and principles we all learn are the same ones. Different appraisers, we all have biases, like some might put more value on a pool than others, or a view, or it's just kind of a personal thing. But you have, whatever we tag an adjustment with, we have to back it up with data. But there's always a big range in data too. Like you could do data on a pool in Summerlin, and you could come between maybe 25 to 50 grand, and where you put that pool is your choice.
So I think that's one of the things that we see, right, when we get our agents who are asking, how do we make a decision on where to go as far as value is concerned? But then if you have issues where the values are coming in lower, what is the best way for a realtor to, I guess, know how to treat the reconsideration? Or in preparing for the appraisal, what would be the best way for them to make sure that you're seeing all the benefits that they see?
So prior to the appraisal, I would do all your own research and maybe have a packet for the appraiser. And I would definitely point out to the appraiser all the attributes of the house and hide behind the bad ones. And then also, if there's any, like you guys are probably way more familiar in the neighborhoods than an appraiser because we just come in on a certain house. But if like the house down the street sold for $20,000 less, but it was, all beat up, that might not, some of the pictures don't show how bad houses are. They kind of put the filters on, right? So that's what we're looking at, is the filtered pictures. But if you could say, hey, by the way, I just want you to know that house down the street, even though it sold for 20 grand less, it had needed flooring, needed this, whatever. That's very helpful to an appraiser.
So I was always of the understanding that we're not allowed to talk to you.
No, not true at all. I mean, you're not supposed to influence us, but...
So handing you documents is not influence?
No. I mean, it's just, it's data. It's just data. Influence would be, if you don't come in this, I'm going to kill your children or something. That's influence.
That's a joke. Did you have a question in the back?
I did. With regards to a lot of the properties that add nations to them, like the pools and so on and so forth, what do you appraise or add for, like, let's say a casita, the pools? Pool prices are increasing dramatically. Has the appraisal gone up on pools and ads? Because we kind of don't understand where to put those numbers anymore. It used to be, you had a $50,000 pool and you put a $25,000 value on it, but you go to price a pool now, it's $50,000 to $60,000 for the same pool that was $30,000 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So have those numbers gone up as well? And
yeah, as the sales goes up, so does the adjustments, right? Like a pool is probably a certain percentage. A $500,000 house, a pool might be worth 50 grand, right? But a $200,000 house, it might only be worth 25. But so that's how we do it.
So is it a percentage of the sales price, or is it because I mean I have a 1,500 square foot home with like a 45,000 square foot pool because I love to swim in my pool.
That's what's known as an over-improvement.
Over-improvement, okay. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, Janet.
Well, I just wanted to ask a question. I used to always meet my appraiser with, these are the comps that I used to come up with as price. So I had a very well-known appraiser one time who said to me, honey, I've been doing this for 30 years, I don't need your comp. And I'm like, whoa. And that was the first house I ever listed that the appraisal came in below. And I was wondering, did I irritate the appraiser?
Yes.
Was his name Scott? Was his name Scott?
He's the only other person that's done appraisals in Las Vegas longer than Harry.
I'm not gonna say. No comment. I just wondered if you think you're being helpful, but then if you have someone who's insulted, could that affect your appraisal?
You know, individually, there's some people that get offended over anything, right? But generally, appraisers love to see what agents are thinking. Because a lot of appraisers work out of their house now, and they get kind of tunnel vision, and they, you know, they don't have any influence from office mates or whatever. When I first got into business, I had an office with like 30 appraisers, and when somebody had a problem, they, you know, just like you guys, bounce the listings off each other. That's what we used to do. You're like, what do you think about this, you know, this goofy staircase or something, right? So that's the problem that we're seeing now.
You don't
But
do that today?
overall, the more data you can give to the appraiser, the better. And
So, are
I
you-
do my preface is by, I'm not trying to do your job, but here's
Are you guys all working remote now, or do you guys do
pretty
still
much. I mean, I still maintain an office, but almost everybody works remote. I mean,
Okay.
COVID kind of
Yeah,
just,
pulled everybody down.
they decided it was pretty cool to work from home, so.
So do you have like a appraisal collaboration channel that you guys jump onto when there's like a unique property that you need help with?
Like the appraisers in my organization, we just talk to each other all the time. You know, like if there's an issue, they'll say, hey, look at this address and tell me what you think or whatever, so.
Got it. Ellie?
I got a question, got two questions.
Oh,
Same property,
one.
okay. I'll try to make it all one. Okay, by the way, house is priced at $250, townhouse, way under market, probably $30,000 under market. So we put our offer in, came in at $280. It seems to count out real well. He did it because initially the woman wasn't going to do any repairs. She decided now to do all these repairs. Cupboards are all taken apart. Well, so we delayed the appraisal. Two things. One, if you see a house at $250 and a contract at $280, does that affect your thinking at all? And two, do the cupboards not being completed yet? That must affect the appraisal too, doesn't it?
Right, yeah, the coverage, if they were still usable, you know, we wouldn't call for a condition maybe, but we're gonna take that into consideration, you know, when we're doing the cost, probably put it at the lower end of the range. And as far as the difference in sales price, if they're selling for $250 and value's $280, most people should come in at the $280 what it's worth, but there are people that will say, no, that, you know, this is a market sell and that's what it is, so I've got to beat it down to make that, you know, make that.
Tagging on to what Ellie's talking about with regards to a condition on those cupboards, let's just say you have to go back out and re-inspect that to make sure they're put back together, right?
Mhm.
So is there an additional charge to the buyer for that appraisal revisit, or is there not? I mean, where do you guys draw the line on that? Because there's a lot of safety items that don't get done, and you guys call them out as an appraisal item, and then you gotta go back out there, and then these are passed on to the buyers
Is that tacked on to the one, or the closing costs or whatever?
No, you're talking about if there's repair items off the appraisal or off the addendum.
Revisit by an appraiser for like, let's just say that the hot water straps are missing, and you gotta go back and, you know,
Yeah.
that's a condition.
Yeah, on a re-inspect, they usually charge $100.
Okay.
And then the AMC, if it goes through an AMC, charges probably another 50 or another 100, so,
So knowing that, should we as buyers agents
yeah.
add that in today's buyer's market possibly? We should add that in that seller pays all reappraisal fees?
Yeah.
Or what about if you're going through the home and you're about to present an offer, you're communicating with the listing agent that, hey, because that's standard for all appraisals, right?
Mhm.
Is the smoke detector also?
Yeah, that's a safety item as well.
What else would be like a county, is it just those two
Everything else
things?
is pretty much conditioned, but almost everybody requires double straps now in the water
And the
heaters.
CO2, I feel like that seems to pop up, the CO2
No.
monitors,
No,
no? Okay.
CO2's not, in Nevada, it's not.
So if you're seeing that as you're doing an inspection, that might be something you want to communicate to the listing agent to try to get them on there, or also with your lender, right? Letting them know, hey, just wait a couple minutes because the seller's going to put on or not minutes, but days to order the appraisal because the seller's going to put this on whatever day, so that it's not a reinspection or a charge to your buyer. Because unfortunately that affects the loan, right? We have to have a finalized appraisal. Oh, go ahead, Sherwin.
That's something that makes you down. Back then, we used to be able to just order simple desktop appraisals. Is that something that's still kind of a thing that's happening now more, or like a BPO desktop appraisal? I used to be able to contact them through the appraisals and ask for a desktop instead of a full blown. They come out and do the whole thing.
I haven't seen. I've seen one property inspection waiver in the last 60 days. I think.
More like a desktop appraisal. You know, like when we're arguing.
Yeah.
With our sellers about pricing.
Oh.
Appraisal normally
we used to call those drive-by shoots.
Can we still request desktop appraisal still?
Maybe you could talk about your list assist through the AMC.
Yeah, my AMC has what we call a list assist that we can put an address in and the computers will spit out what it thinks is the best comps. That's a free service.
Yeah. Yes, so list assist. If you send that to any of your Prosperity Lending loan officers, subject line just list assist and your property address, we'll forward that over to the AMC and give you guys their, I mean, it's got all the comps on there that you would use, right? To come up with an evaluation in AMC. Go ahead, Jason.
Question on rent. When you do appraisals that are giving a rent value, have you been seeing an increase in the rent value when they're asking you to give your getting a rent?
Yeah, the rental forms are pretty much just like an appraisal. We just go with the most current rents. So just like the values of rents have been going up as well.
So really quick off that, so what about now with all the short-term rentals? Obviously, a long-term rental versus a short-term rental, it has a higher market rent. Are you able to utilize, or how do you utilize rental, providing a rental income on that if it's going to be a short-term rental?
Yeah, so we would never use a short-term rental. What? Yeah, it's true. No, we're looking for like 1-year leases and that kind of thing because it's a more stable indicator.
Got it. Okay, fine.
There's not enough short-term rentals on the market.
What's that?
There's not going to be enough short-term rentals on the market to be able to use it as data.
They're not, okay.
What are the top things you condition for on when you do appraisal besides the earthquake traps? Because sometimes there's unpermitted additions. How far do you go back before you condition on that? Sometimes the windows don't open as designed and then they might condition. Like, what is what you see more often that you would condition for to help us be able to foresee that ahead of time before we send you out there and communicate with the listing agent to get that done?
Okay, so on FHA, we're looking for anything that's safety related, like windows that are non-functional, that kind of thing. But almost the most typical thing I see with FHA is either paint or straps or smoke detectors.
So peeling paint is a big one that we see a lot on the eaves and even on the boards, like the wood going into the house, things like that. Why is that, the peeling paint?
Yeah, the sun just blows everything up.
Dry rot.
Dry rot, that's what they're looking for? So that would definitely be something that you're seeing, especially if you have an FHA buyer. If you see there's, I feel like also stains in the wall, right, the ceiling, make sure you're addressing that. And then also peeling off of your eaves and things like that.
Yeah, and on the conventional thing, we really don't, we hardly ever condition for conventional. It's just accounted for under condition. So we might rate it as just average condition, make adjustments for superior properties.
And then with your windows, is it like one functional window per room, or is it all of them have to be?
No, it's...
Because I'm remodeling my house, I want to make sure I pass the appraisal.
No, it's just in bedrooms. Bedrooms have to have 2 exits, so one's the window. Every bedroom has to have a window and a door.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
On the windows that have the bars, you have to have that.
Yeah, on bedrooms, they have to have safety releases. And that's just in case of fire.
On the one house I've sold so far, the appraisal came in $10,000 below our offer. It was a VA loan. And one of the things I was really happy about was the appraiser was out there like right away. And that was a blessing for us because we were closing quickly, trying to. But my mortgage lender said, let's give them comps so that it will support our offered price, which was quite fair. It was in parum, there was no frenzy, it was kind of straight. So I did that. I provided comps to my lender, he forwarded it to the appraiser, and the appraiser came back and said, oh, I'm sorry, we can't use your comps because it's new construction. And it wasn't new construction. The comps were pulled from MLS. These were not brand new construction. So I got really confused about that because I was told there's no new construction in MLS. It's all resales.
No, there is new, builders will list in MLS. So.
But these properties were not new. They had been resold. So I got really confused. And then when I asked them to relook at the appraisal, there was 150 feet smacked onto the buyer, which I thought they were going to look at it for free.
Yeah, there's no charge for reconsideration. Even with VA, there's no fee. So just so you guys know, for our process, for conventional and FHA, so Harry is one of our 5 appraisers on our panel. If a value is coming in low, they actually alert us. The value is coming in low. This is the number that they're coming up with. At that point, for us, we've got about 48 hours to alert our agents. It's typically the buyer's agent who then goes to the listing agent and says, hey, our appraisal's coming in low. With VA, it's specifically called a Tidewater process. They will just issue Tidewater. They send it typically to our processor and says, hey, we're having a hard time coming in with value. They give us no indication of what that value is. So it could be $1 off and they're still issuing the Tidewater. At that point, and if you guys are dealing with anybody who's doing VA, you want to make sure you're responding as quickly as possible because the VA appraiser will finalize that in 48 hours if they don't hear from us. So it's really important that you send that and send everything you can possibly think of in either situation to your lender or the process whoever is requesting it so that you make sure that you're getting that to them quickly enough so that they can convert it over to us. And usually the reconsideration process, like for Harry, whenever we send that into you, we're sending you like, where I've ever seen it's really been affected is if there's something that recently closed that may have taken place after you went and inspected the property, right?
Yeah. So I don't understand your situation where.
Yeah. It was a real bummer, but fortunately my mortgage lender came up with a mortgage where the buyer would get a $5,000 credit to help bridge that gap. A little bit higher interest rate. Yeah. At that time, 4 was higher than what they really wanted, but it helped them bridge that $10,000 gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was prosperity, by the way, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck. Yes, Tad.
Oh, thank you again for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
oh.
You, of course you too. My question is, I came to a situation a few years ago about a 5%, 10% rule where even though it was the same collection, but the houses ranged from, they're about 800 square feet difference, and, it's like a 3,800 square foot house versus a 3,500 square foot house or something like that, and the appraiser saying, oh no, that house is, I can't remember if you said 5% or 10% above what the other house that just sold. So I can't use that house as an appraiser. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's kind of a general rule. It's any line item shouldn't be more than 10% or gets flagged by Fannie Mae. So on GLA, if you're, most of the time you got to be within 200 or 300 feet. Like if you got a 2,500 square foot house, you try to compare it with a 3,000 square foot, it's going to get scrutinized and kicked back. So you want to be as close as you can in square footage. Does that make sense? Yeah, even if it's in the same thing. One of the issues I always get with reconsiderations is, and pardon me, but I know you guys always go upon price per square foot, and I'll get comps. I'll be my subject will be 3,000 square feet, and I'll get comps that are 1,000 because they sold for the same square foot amount, right? And it just never works that way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, you got apples and apples again.
Yeah.
When the prices start going up, the banks were very conservative or afraid of these or appraisers too. What is the feeling now? Are they being conservative or
No,
I don't say for you, Shelley.
it seems, when everything starts to increase, it seems like we're conservative, but we're still looking at that trend line. So like I say, we're always in the historical part. So if it was stable 3 or 4 months ago, we're not going to recognize an increase right away. Does that make sense? So I mean, it looks like we're being conservative when it's taken off, but now when it's going down the other way, you're going to go, wow, those guys are really liberal. Look at that.
They're overappraised values today. Denise in the back.
Question here on solar. I had an appraiser tell me that fully paid for solar had no value at all.
Well, in my world, that's incorrect. Like anything that adds value, like to me, like paid solar is similar to a pool or a casita or whatever. It's an added value. Now leased solar wouldn't have any value to us, but yeah, paid solar for sure. Okay. And there's getting more and more comps. A few years ago there was rarely a comp that had owned solar, but now there's more and more. So it's easier to make that adjustment.
And I had a question following on that, because I heard something where if it's paid off, it's like almost like a certain price per kilowatt on the solar panel. Do you look at anything like size of?
I've never got into it that deep. I'll just look for solar comps.
So specific to that, if there's another property, you're going to look for another property that has solar in order for you to, and say model match
and to conform to Fannie Mae guidelines, you have to have at least one cell. Like you can't make an across-the-board solar adjustment, say that. So if there was nothing in the neighborhood, I'm going to go way distance to find anything just to get in that grid. Otherwise, Fannie Mae is not going to accept it.
Well, could you say that one more time?
Okay, so any individual adjustment, I'm just going to use solar as an example. I can't make an across-the-board adjustment, like add a certain amount to every single comp. I'm going to have at least one comp with the same component.
Okay.
Do the new converters from garages for solar cars add any value to it? Like they put up their garage and make so you can plug it where you can, test exactly where you can power up your car in 1 hour or 2 hours. Is that any value?
I've never come across that yet.
You could take that out though, can't you?
No, it's hardwired.
It's hardwired.
Really?
They wire stuff. They can go along the roof of it.
They're actually building new homes.
It can, yeah. Right, Ms. Lizette.
So I have a house that we're actually in the process of closing on, and we bought it at $279, and the listing agent has provided me an appraisal. It came in at $297, and we did our appraisal, and it came in at $280. And it's only like a month and a half difference.
Maybe they should have given them the other appraisal before they,
It's probably one of those cases that we call, price to the sales price, right? So it's like,
So is that something that I actually should have done? I mean, it still was $1,000 higher, so but obviously the buyer decided to buy that house because,
Right, they thought they were getting a really good deal and now,
I mean, obviously we're still moving forward on it because it definitely still looks at everything that I've heard at. It would still come out at a higher number for them to do their repairs, but is that something I should probably count as a consideration or where do we actually split this?
If it's only like 30 days apart on those appraisals, it shouldn't be that far apart. But I suspect that, he was looking at the sales price.
So I would save your battles for one that you are under versus over on value. You know what I mean? Just your energy and time, because depending on the appraiser, it's easy enough to have a conversation. But if you're going down that reconsideration process, you have to provide them with a ton of data to help support why. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you've already got over value on your appraisal. May not be worth it.
I think the way to approach the buyer is say the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I did, and it's the whole thing because there's some repairs that need to be done in the house, and we kind of took those and compared it to what they were, just all those different things. I mean, I was obviously they're still going with it. I just wanted to know from mine.
Yeah. Well, when all that spells, just blame it on the appraiser.
just take the video snippet and say, remember, he said not all appraisers are the same. So, Christina, did you?
The double door on the garage door, the security or a safety issue.
Yeah, that would be a fire issue. So on an FHA, that's going to have to be replaced.
Just FHA?
Yeah, Yeah, conventional's not worried about it, but FHA for sure. I just did one this morning that somebody had to replace that.
They need to replace, not repair.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to repair because it's a fire-rated door, so it's pretty much have to be replaced.
That's specific to the door though, right? If they built one into the wall or whatever, that doesn't matter,
No,
correct?
it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter if there's a slider, a garage door, and then a pool door that has the doggy door on it that they have to replace that, or is it?
No, it's only the garage, and it's
The garage,
it's a fire issue because most fires start in the garage, so they
Ah.
want that 3-hour window on that door.
Got it.
Why is it on the door but not on the wall?
If it's on
It's
the wall,
specific to the
it's on the
garage.
wall. If it's on the wall in the garage, it's gonna be a fire hazard, so yeah.
Right, yeah, any interior wall on the garage, if it's compromised, is gonna have to be fixed. That's why they have 5/8 sheetrock in the garages too for fire protection as well. Another thing I run into is, people might cut a hole in the garage for storage, and that'll have to be fixed as well for FHA.
What if it's a designated attic?
If it doesn't have an attic.
If it's designated as an attic? Still not?
Right.
What if I give you paperwork on that that says it's an attic? Just kidding, okay. Any other questions?
Well, if there's space above the garage that's usable, they do make fire-rated doors that can be put on there. It doesn't have to be closed off. It could be
Yeah,
fixed
correct.
and
Yeah,
For the
as
attic.
long as it's fire rated, you're
Yeah,
good.
most people just cut a hole and leave it open, but if you
Ah.
put a fire-rated door on it,
Right.
it's allowed to be
Has to be fire rated and sealed.
If you have a
Got it.
designated attic, it's been built with fire-rated doors on it.
Got it. Oh, you got it. Any other questions? No? Okay, I still have some more, so you guys sure? Jason, no questions? Myra, no questions? Okay, so I did see an appraisal the other day that came in with a green pool. And it wasn't actually conditioned for, which surprised me, because I always thought here in Las Vegas, we always had to have the pools cleaned, or you had to have some indication that the pump was working.
Yeah, you got lucky on that one. That should have been a condition. Absolutely. Yeah.
It would, was it, no, it wasn't your appraisal actually. So in that particular case, because the underwriter actually didn't condition out for it either.
The only way I can see getting away with that as an appraiser is not giving it any value. Like just
okay.
imagine it doesn't even have a pool, but if it's full of water, like it should be in working order.
So what does that exactly mean? Because there are cases where it might be slightly green. The pump
Yeah,
is.
I mean, yeah, sometimes it's just a maintenance issue, but like if the pump's down, it's going to be. I did one the other day that was emerald green. The lady said it hadn't worked for like a couple of years.
And so do you condition for it to be fixed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I approach it two ways. I say you can fix it and get value,
Oh, okay.
or I can just ignore it, and say that I'm not doing it anymore.
So there's no safety or health hazard issue that we have to worry about on the lending side?
Well, FHA wants it filled or covered. That's how they do it. So you
green.
can still fall in and drown and get disease or whatever from a green pool, but you're not going to fall and crack your head, I guess. I've never understood that, but that's the way FHA is.
Well, that's actually a great point, because I did have a question, or somebody had asked me about pools, if it's not filled for FHA or conventional, if there's a difference. So you're saying if it's FHA, it needs to either be filled or covered?
Covered, right.
Okay. All right. The other question I have, which you kind of mentioned, was on your, I guess for comps. So with the big iBuyer and the cash buyers, how does that compare to a financed transaction when you're looking at it from value?
For a comparable?
Yeah.
So the iBuyers usually don't show up in my searches because they're not, I usually almost always just go with the MLS data, and the iBuyers usually don't show up in there. But
It just shows up as cash?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how does that cash transaction affect a finance transaction?
I'm not even going to use it. So I'm just going to use the stuff. We have to verify everything with two sources, and one of them is always going to be MLS, and the other is county records. So if it was a county record only sell, I'd have to track down somebody to verify it. And when there's a million other comps, it's not even worth the time.
So that would be another example of when it would be a good opportunity for the agent who's listing it, or if you're going out there, to provide you with all the list of comps,
Mhm.
inclusive of the ones that may not be on the MLS. Go ahead.
How about an appraisal done in a house that is not MLS? You still use MLS?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. No, I do a lot of business that's not sales, it just like, estate things or whatever that's not an MLS. It hasn't been listed for years, but, they want to value it, so.
What about for our coming soons? Do those affect, I know they're not technically on an MLS, but does that, if we know, so an agent knows that something is coming soon in their neighborhood because another agent's posted it, would you suggest that they wait for it to be listed, officially listed, or can you use that as a reference point?
Couldn't use it until it's listed, till it's in county records and public records.
Okay, perfect. The last question I have was, so I was pulling up this article on 18 things to consider when 18 things to consider when ordering an appraisal. The one thing that I saw through many of the searches is curb appeal, which I feel like that's one part that I never see other than the picture on the front, but how does curb appeal affect your decision or valuation, or does it?
There used to be an adjustment called design and appeal that hardly anybody ever used, but typically landscape and all that, we don't take into consideration because we know if it gets repossessed, it's all going to be dead. So we don't really take that into consideration that much. It's mostly the inside condition, and outside obviously. But
so it doesn't matter if it's nicely landscaped and has like big palm trees or
no, I think
any
that'd
of
be
that stuff.
real good for a selling feature, but not so much for value.
For value, okay. And then the last thing I have, so on this flyer, there's this. This is actually one of your agents, Kathy Rice, listing. I don't know if it's already in contract, but it's I think she called it a geo design. It looks like a dome.
Oh,
and so,
geodesic.
what do you call it?
Geodesic.
Geodesic, yes. So I was asking her how an appraiser would actually value that, because as I drove through the community, there's probably only like 4 or 5 in Las Vegas. Yeah, so how would you value this home? It's listed at 1.1. What value would you give it? I'm just kidding. Right off the piece of paper.
I'd want to give it 0. I have done a few of those over the years. A couple on Mount Charleston, and I think that one looks real familiar. There's one out in Henderson too. So
that's
it. Same procedure. We got to find another dome house that's sold, and sometimes we got to go back years.
Yeah.
But it's a real design nightmare to me. So.
Design nightmare. So
yeah.
we're not going to order this one through Harry because he doesn't prefer this one. We're going to order this one through. No, I'm just kidding. So what makes it so tough? Just because of the fact that
it's a unique design, and there's probably maybe a dozen in the whole valley.
So do you do a major time adjustment if it's been like 5 years?
Yeah, you'd have to.
So you can't compare square footage to square footage.
Yeah, you'd still do that, but you'd still need to find, some kind of dome or weird design house to complement.
It's a beautiful home though, inside.
But for $1 million, it's got to have a lot of land, I would think.
It does. It's under an acre. It has a detached 4-car garage with a mechanical lift. For those of you who are looking to buy this.
All the values in the garage.
It's in Henderson. It's right across from Lake Las Vegas or Calico Ridge. Is there? Dome house? Okay, there you go. What's it valued at?
Well, it's a for sale by owner for years, but it's over $1 million.
Okay. Does for sale by owners help you? Does that help with comps?
What's that?
For sale by owners, does that play into comps at all?
Only when they sell.
Only when they sell. Okay. Christina?
And what about age of the property? How much, what a new property is?
Yeah, on new construction, we try to only go with new construction, although there's one caveat, we have to have a resale in an appraisal, so we try to get one that's a year or 2 old that's resold. And then as far as the further they go back in time, like if you're working on a 60-year-old house, you could probably have a 25-year range. If you're working on like a 10-year house, maybe a 2 or 3-year range.
So you cannot compare it 2020 with the 2010?
Not really. I try to stay right around that same age. And most of the time, all the developers are all pretty clustered, so there's always comps that are similar age.
And what about cookie-cutter houses with different houses? Which one are better at price?
I always try with the same design. Like if it's a little tract house, I'm going to try to stay with the same kind of design and quality.
Michael?
What kind of value, if any, can be added to a home? Let's say somebody has a nice custom home, and they put something like a portable home, like a boxable or something like that, that they, they put a foundation down and set it on there. Is there any value added for anything like that? Some of these, it tends to be what I see a lot of people that have vacation rentals doing now, to have an auxiliary little housing on the property.
Like a casita?
Like a casita, but it's something that's, completely
As long as it's permitted and functional, it'll have value.
Okay.
Tiny home on foundation.
Can you touch on those values though? Because what's considered a casita, bathroom, kitchen, or just extra square footage? I mean, what's the difference between what he's talking about, a casita, and let's say an outbuilding that's been converted, that's carpeted and has windows and has electrical, has AC, etc., and is more of a guest bedroom? I mean, is there a difference in variable of the price on that?
Yeah, if you've just got, say, a finished room versus, a bedroom and a bath, or maybe a wet bar, something that's, the functionality, there would be a big difference.
So is that representative is, let's say it's a casita, so the house is being appraised at $238 a square foot. Is the casita with the kitchen and the bathroom, is that $238 a square foot? And just that room that's in the backyard, is that what, 50% of that value? I mean, where's the value?
Yeah, it would depend on, the quality and also what's supported. Like on a specific thing like a casita, we'd have to find what casitas are bringing to the market. So that it would probably wouldn't be some kind of a percentage of the square footage price of the house, but there would definitely be value. I know that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
So for example,
help at all.
So for example, I just did one in Sun City with a casita. And up there, they're always about 400 square feet, they're 20 by 20 all. So to get that value, there was all kinds of model matches, some without and some with. So that's how I arrived at that casita adjustment.
So in other words, you would consider it as an accessory to the house, not really added to it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Would you consider it more as an?
Oh yeah, it's accessory. We call it an accessory unit. Yeah, it's a separate line. Unless it's attached to the house, like there's some casitas that are attached to the house, and then we don't separate those. Those are just included in the house.
Wow. Yeah, if your subject property was a one-story and you had near identical properties in the same neighborhood, stats, wise, characteristics, and all that, they were two-story, would you use those and make adjustments from the two-story to one-story, or would you go outside the neighborhood to find similar, or,
Yeah, I'm always going to go with the same design, so I'd go find one stories. I have used 2 stories versus 1 stories if there's nothing else, but there is an adjustment for that.
A downward adjustment if you have a single story subject property and the only thing you can compare to is a 2-story, that would be a
A 2-story would get a bump. 1 stories are more valuable.
Okay, so downward adjustment. Okay. All right, we are at time. Does anybody else have any last questions? No. All right. Please give it up for Harry. And again, if you guys need or you want any of those comp valuations for your listings or even on your buy side, make sure that you email inside of the app or email us to Prosperity Lending. List assist inside of your subject line so that we can get you guys those, what are they called, comps? Comparisons. All right, have a great week, guys.
I'll leave some cards if any of y'all have any questions after. Feel free to call. Always happy to help.
Thank you.